It started with bass, deep, delicious, chest-thumping bass that rolled through the neighborhood like a summer wave. It wasn't obnoxious, it was vibe. I just moved into this sleepy cul-de-sac 3 weeks ago and finally got around to breaking in the backyard sound system. Classic R&B, some Latin grooves, and a splash of reggae. You know, the good stuff. Enter Karen. I hadn't officially met her yet, but my Ring camera sure had. She was the mysterious figure who left notes about trash bins being visible from the street, and who measured my grass with what suspiciously looked like a knitting ruler. That afternoon, while Ain't No Mountain High Enough was doing its thing, she emerged from her beige vinyl fortress like a groundhog detecting fun. Marching over in orthopedic sandals and a pastel visor, she didn't bother knocking. Nope. She yelled from her driveway like it was a courtroom, and she was Judge Judy. "Excuse me, yes, you with the music." I lowered the volume slightly and waved. Friendly, neighborly. "You're violating the HOA's quiet enjoyment clause," she barked, waving a clipboard that probably had no legal power whatsoever. I blinked. "It's 4:30 p.m., and that's 4 hours and 30 minutes too late for this kind of noise," she snapped. "Some of us work from home." I held up my lemonade. "So do I." "You'll be hearing from the HOA," she declared, spinning on her heel with the drama of a soap opera villain. I could practically hear a thunderclap. 2 days later, I got the letter. HOA violation notice 00117. Complaint, excessive noise. Fine, $150. Action required, cease and desist use of outdoor sound equipment. I actually laughed out loud. Not because of the fine, but because Karen really thought she won. She had no clue. See, what Karen didn't know, because she never asked, was that I'm the newly appointed Noise Ordinance Officer for the city. Yup. Badge, jurisdiction, the works. I know every decimal limit, every permitted hour, and every loophole that lets you host a full-blown backyard concert legally if you know how to play the system. And I wrote most of those loopholes. I walked right into the HOA's next meeting, which, surprise, Karen chaired with all the subtlety of a toddler with a gavel. She blinked when she saw me. "This is a closed session, sir." I smiled. "Not when you're enforcing local noise ordinances illegally. You filed a formal complaint that contradicts municipal code." Dead silence. One of the board members coughed awkwardly. "Wait, who are you?" I pulled out my ID and badge, laying them gently on the table like aces in a poker game. "City-appointed Noise Ordinance Officer. Just moved in, and I brought some notes." Karen turned the color of spoiled yogurt. I pulled up my phone. Ring footage, time-stamped. Music never exceeded 60 decibels. Local law allows 65 until 10 p.m. Also, she trespassed and made a noise complaint without a meter reading or proper authorization. One of the younger board members muttered, "She did the same thing to me last Halloween over my fog machine." Karen tried to regain control. "This is a community issue." "No," I replied smoothly. "This is a personal vendetta you're masking with fake authority." The board exchanged looks. I just cracked the HOA matrix. Karen tried one last play. "Well, maybe the HOA needs to revise its bylaws." I leaned back, smiling. "Perfect. I'd be happy to consult. I specialize in neighborhood noise codes." Karen didn't reply. She just looked like her entire HOA empire was built on Jell-O, and someone had just turned up the heat. Karen doubles down, but so does the new neighbor. The HOA gets nervous. Chaos brews. Karen did what Karens do best: escalate. After being publicly checked in the HOA meeting, she didn't retreat. She regrouped. I gave her credit for persistence. Most people would have backed off after getting smacked down by city code and logic. Not Karen. No, she came back stronger, with flyers. Yes, the next morning, every mailbox on the street had a letter titled, "Is Your Peace Being Disturbed?" complete with passive-aggressive fonts, a fake pole, and a clip art megaphone that looked like it was shouting, "Reclaim our silence." She listed the offender by address, my address, and claimed I was operating an unlicensed backyard club. I read it 3 times and nearly choked on my bagel. It was so bad, it was beautiful. Then my phone buzzed. HOA violation 00. Complaint. Operating an unauthorized entertainment venue. Fine, $300. Required action, cease use of outdoor lighting and speakers. She really filed it, with a straight face. I went full petty. I printed her flyer on glossy cardstock and handed it out at the local coffee shop with a sign that read, "Live music? Club? Come see for yourself. HOA Karen's lying again." Turns out people love drama and decent playlists. That Friday, I hosted a barbecue. Nothing loud, just chill beats, grilled ribs, and neighbors who were very curious. Even a few HOA board members showed up. Turns out they were sick of Karen too. One guy brought IPA. Another whispered she fined me for using a wind chime once. Karen watched from across the street with binoculars and a full glass of white wine, judging like she was the final boss of suburban tension. She called the police. I welcomed them with a smile, offered lemonade, and showed them my decibel monitor readings, noise permit, and even the city's event registration confirmation. The officer grinned. "You're good." Karen screeched from her porch. "But they're partying in the open, with lights." He nodded. "You're allowed warm lighting until 10 p.m., ma'am." She stormed back inside, muttering something about filing a citizen's noise audit, whatever that meant. The next HOA meeting was chaos. Karen marched in with a binder labeled Proof of Repeated Disturbances, which was literally just pages of printed photos of my backyard, none of which showed anything louder than lawn chairs. I walked in with a Bluetooth speaker, playing jazz softly in my pocket, and wore a shirt that said, "Noise Ordinance. I am the law." The board looked exhausted. Karen's antics were starting to wear thin. The treasurer looked like she aged 10 years in 2 weeks. The secretary brought wine in a thermos. Karen slammed her binder down. "He's turning the neighborhood into a festival zone." I raised a brow. "For playing Al Green and grilling ribs?" She scowled. "You've got fans! They wave at you now!" I chuckled. "It's called being neighborly." The president of the HOA, an older man named Phil, finally spoke up. "We've checked the permits. We've spoken with the city. He hasn't broken a single rule." Karen looked like her soul left her body. "But he's disrupting the spirit of the neighborhood." Phil sighed. "Karen, you've fined half the board over the past 2 years. Last month, you tried to ban patio umbrellas." Someone muttered, "Don't forget the flamingo incident." Another chimed in, "She told my kids sidewalk chalk was vandalism." Phil finally said it, "Maybe you're the disruption." Silence. Karen's mouth moved, but no words came out. For once, she was speechless, but something told me she wasn't done. Karen wasn't the type to go quietly, and I was definitely not done with her. Karen did what Karens do best. She doubled down. After her first failed noise complaint got laughed out of the HOA office, you'd think she'd back off. Nope, she cranked up the Karen energy to 11. She started logging every single sound she could hear from my house. Cough? Log? Logged? Dog bark? Logged. Me sneezing? Oh, definitely logged. Then came the spreadsheets, color-coded, time-stamped, labeled disruptions to suburban serenity. She emailed the HOA and the city daily. Now, since I'm the actual noise ordinance officer, those reports landed on my desk. The first time I saw one, I nearly spit out my coffee. Alleged audio assault, 4:37 p.m. Suspect was humming loudly near mailbox. Genre unclear. Possibly jazz. Jazz? Possibly? I was offended. My coworkers got a kick out of it. One of them suggested I hang her reports up like Employee of the Month certificates. Instead, I got an idea. Saturday morning, bright and early. I threw a little backyard brunch, quiet, tasteful, lots of pastries, and instrumental music. You know, real ear-friendly vibes. But I placed a small Bluetooth speaker near the fence. It was tuned to a frequency only Karen could hear, at least in her imagination. She showed up in 5 minutes, already red in the face. "Turn that racket down," she yelled over smooth saxophone. One of my guests sipped her mimosa and asked, "Wait, this is what she calls loud?" Karen waved her clipboard. "I've logged every offense. You'll be fined. You're disturbing the entire community." That's when I pulled out my ID. "Karen, I am the noise ordinance officer." She froze like someone had hit pause on her soul. "No," she whispered. "No, no, no." "Yes," I said calmly. "And I've reviewed your reports personally. According to city code, your complaints are classified as excessive and frivolous." I was just wasting taxpayer resources, I cut in, flipping open my clipboard. "So starting today, we'll be documenting you." Her jaw unhinged like a broken Pez dispenser. She tried to retreat, but the damage was done. Word spread fast. The next HOA meeting? Let's just say it was standing room only, and not in her favor. One neighbor brought a petition titled, "Less Karen, More Peace." Another neighbor stood up and read her noise logs out loud like poetry. 2:13 p.m., subject whistled, birdsong escalated, felt personally attacked. The room was in stitches. Karen tried to protest, but she'd become a suburban meme. To top it off, the board passed a vote actual noise standards enforced by, guess who? Me. And guess whose house immediately got flagged? Karen's. Turns out her wind chimes were 3 decibels over the limit. I cited her. She screamed, "This is abuse of power." I replied, "No, ma'am. This is compliance." That night, my house was peaceful. Smooth jazz played at a legal 65 decibels. My dogs lounged in their HOA-approved yard. And across the street, Karen sat on her porch, clutching her wind chimes like they were her last ounce of control. She still tried to report me, once for smiling suspiciously. Didn't work. Because when you play stupid games with the noise guy, you get legally sound consequences. Karen wasn't done. Oh no, when Karen's cornered, she doesn't surrender. She escalates. The day after I cited her for her wind chimes, she tried filing a countercomplaint for weaponized jazz. That's right. She accused me of using Miles Davis as psychological warfare. At this point, it was honestly impressive. She even dragged out one of those tiny decibel readers, standing in front of my house like she was auditioning for CSI HOA edition. Sunglasses, clipboard, the whole 9 yards. If she had chalk, she probably would have outlined her own dignity on the sidewalk. But the neighborhood had officially flipped. People were tired of her nonsense. And the irony that she had become the loudest thing on the block wasn't lost on anyone. The HOA called an emergency noise review forum, which was just fancy speak for, "We're finally going to deal with Karen." Karen strutted in like she was walking into a courtroom, except I actually work in one. She carried 3 binders labeled auditory abuse, emotional trauma, and, no joke, suburban sabotage. She began her presentation with a graph showing community happiness sharply declining every time I hosted a barbecue. One neighbor raised his hand. "Karen, those dips line up with your complaints, not his parties." She scoffed. "Correlation is not causation." I replied, "But Karen, your voice is louder than my speakers." The room laughed. Except Karen. She fumed like a kettle that's never been hugged. I let her finish her dramatic TED talk on the dangers of melodic expression, then stood up and showed a simple slide. 0 verified noise violations, 4 frivolous complaints, 1 recurring offender. That offender? Her. And then, the twist. You see, over the past month, I'd been collecting my own data on Karen's noise. Her ranting voicemails, her late-night porch rants, her passive-aggressive yelling at squirrels. I played a montage. It started with, "Turn that jazz down," and ended with, "Why are birds singing at 6 a.m.? She lunged for the laptop, too late. The HOA board laughed. Not with her, at her. Phil, the board chair, sighed. "Karen, this is no longer about noise. This is about harassment. We're recommending a permanent citation." Her eyes widened. "You wouldn't dare." I leaned forward. "Karen, you've been disturbing the peace." So here's how it ended. Karen's powers revoked. Her clipboard confiscated. Her megaphone banned under the new No Karen Acoustics clause. Okay, it's not called that officially, but that's what everyone's calling it. I, on the other hand, was promoted as the official HOA sound compliance advisor. Fancy title for the guy who shut Karen down with a saxophone. My parties, fully authorized. My jazz, HOA approved. My speakers, balanced at a respectful, groovy 62 decibels. Karen, she now wears noise-canceling headphones whenever she waters her lawn. Sometimes I wave. She doesn't wave back, but I can see her lips twitch. Maybe it's rage. Maybe, just maybe, it's the jazz growing on her. Want the thumbnail prompt, 15-word caption, or